So hello again, my friends. I would like to remind you that we are at Games Gathering Game Dev Under Bombs event. This is a unique event dedicated to support the Ukraine, to stand with Ukraine. And our next speaker is Mykola Stryebkov. He's a project lead at FishingPlanet.com, and his session is named on pre-planning of mass murders of civilians by invading Russian forces. So I would like to invite Mykola. Hi, Mykola.
Hi.
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you. So can you start your presentation? Can you share a screen?
No, he will not be sharing a screen. I have nothing to show, so it will be just talking.
Okay. Just looking. Okay. So, are you ready?
Okay. So my name is Mykola Stryebkov. I represent here Fishing Planet LLC, and our company makes, I believe, the best fishing simulator in the world. In the company, I lead game carrier project. We create a framework for rapid development of cross-platform multiplayer games. And during last year, we implemented support for many platforms like Mac, Linux, Win10, UVP. And just before the war, we added support for mobile clones. And basically, my first talk on Games Gathering meant to be about game carrier, but we are here today speaking about completely different topics. And me personally, I support armed forces of Ukraine since 14th of March of 2014. And one of my hobbies is history. Basically, I love it. I read about history a lot. So when I saw sign of Russian atrocities in occupied territories, I immediately knew I already saw this pattern before, this modus operandi before. So we, with a group of volunteers, conducted and translated the many languages research about what we think is pre-planned murders of Ukrainian civilians. Yes, we have all the reasons to believe that mass killings of Ukrainian civilians was planned of time, and we have many different reasons to believe in it. So I'll go with. I'm really sorry. It's my first public talk, so please be forgiving if something goes wrong. So I'll start with state propaganda in Russia. It's a topic in itself, and I can speak about it for maybe hours, but it all boils down to the following. Golner, prominent Israeli politician, once told that if somebody says that he wants to kill you, believe him. Just believe him in the moment he tells it to you. During the last 10 years, state propaganda in Russia gave us a lot of reasons to believe they want us dead, basically. They told us that our country is not a country. They told us that we are anti-Russians, that we are Nazis, that we are, and they openly called to extermination of what they call Nazis. In the document I'll share with everybody here, maybe a little bit later, I have few pieces of mentioned propaganda, and in one case we'll just direct talk about, oh, blah blah blah, we have 5 to 6 million of Ukrainians who cannot be cured, so they have to be or killed or expelled. So it's about propaganda. Then my main trigger to conduct this research was basically similarity of executions. I knew that Russians started to kill military-aged men I knew since March, 4th of March, when they came into Matizhin. It's a village near Zhytomyr, and they came into Matizhin at 3rd of March, and 4th of March, I started to hear they just entering houses and killing men. So when they just ran of Kiev, retreated, we started to see a lot of killings, murders, executions. So one group of those executions were particularly interesting. It was different people in different locations killed almost at the same time. Most of them were, as I said, military-aged men. Their hands were tied behind their backs, and they got a bullet in the back of head. Here. Why this is kind of distinctive executions? First of all, it's relatively humane. I mean, brain with this type of execution gets destroyed before it feels the pain. Second, from the history, I know that it was exactly this method of execution was widely used by NKVD in 20s and 30s, 1920s, 1930s. And what is even more important, this method of execution is still in use in Belarus. So Belarus still has capital punishment, and when they execute people, they basically tie their hands behind the back, get them on their knees, and shoot in the back. So we can assume here that the relevant Soviet-era methodological literature still in possession and in use of RU officers. And we have mass burials. I think many of you already heard that Russia adopted a new state standard on mass burials in 21st of September last year. And this state standard came into force February 2 of this year. It's like 3 weeks before the invasion. They have in this standard concrete sizes of mass burials and concrete recommendation about how to prepare burials before putting body in it. But I've measured 2 places in Kiev Oblast. It's in Bucha and in Andriivka, and those burials doesn't conform this standard. But anyway, in my opinion, it's kind of important sign that Russians were prepared for mass losses. Then we have very interesting sign, and it's about mobile crematoria. Mobile crematoria, it was basically United Kingdom Secretary of State for Defense, Ben Wallace, who told a few days before the invasion that Russian troops preparing their mobile crematoria, and but he basically was wrong. Yes, they were preparing crematoria, but Mr. Wallace said that this crematoria intended for basic Russian troops. So it's Russians meant to hide their losses on battlefield, and they were intended to use crematoria to hide their losses. I believe it's not true, and here is the reason. Due to documentation on this mobile crematory on website of its producer, full cremation time for a single object is approximately 1 hour. Given that Russian army does not have a lot of crematoria in their possession, it would be impossible to burn so many bodies to be able to hide their losses. So basically, I believe this crematoria was intended for Ukrainian citizens, and that's why. Soviet Union, Russia and Soviet Union, our territory, historically tried to hide bodies of killed prominent Ukrainians. The most maybe well-known example is killing of Roman Shukhevich. And after he was killed, MGB officers who killed him got the order to burn his body and to throw the ash into the river. Crematoria is maybe the best way to hide bodies, to make people disappear. You person, you burn the body, and that's it. Basically, you get all evidences of existence of this person disappeared. Okay, then we have in public space information about Russian kill lists. A few days before the invasion, United States ambassador to United Nations in Geneva wrote a letter to Office of Human Rights with concern regarding Russian lists. So in this letter, he states that Russians have been creating lists of Ukrainians intended just for basic extermination. The link to this letter is also in the document. It's publicly available, so go on, read it for yourself. Another evidence of preparation to mass killings was the information from our state security service about 45,000 body bags. Body bag is intended basically for body, for that person. Why? Also, everybody already started to think about body bags for Russian soldiers, for Russian losses, but it's also not true. It's kind of complicated argument, but I'll try to explain it in short words. When military start to plan any operation, they also start to plan losses. Basically, every military operation is ready to get some people killed. So they basically take a percentage of losses of military personnel. And usually this level of losses is planned on like 5%, 7%, and that's it. Why? Because there are two kinds of losses, basically. There are dead soldiers and there are wounded soldiers. And statistics says to us that wounded soldiers, the number of wounded soldiers is 3 times more than approximately than number of killed. So if you plan 5% of killed, it means that total losses of your forces will be at the level of like 20%. It's 5% killed, 5 multiplied 3, 15% wounded. So if Ukraine had on our borders like 2,000 strong invading force, and they prepared 45,000 body bags, it meant if those bags were intention soldiers, then it meant that Russian military planners planned losses at the level of 22.5%. It's absolutely because it meant that they planned total losses on the level of 90% of all invading forces. No one in military will be preparing such an operation. It's just impossible. It basically means you send your men to extermination, to complete almost extermination. So it's why we think that 45,000 body bags were prepared for Ukrainians. Another reason for another very important point is that we have all signs that tell us that Russians were meant to get easy walk in Ukraine. So what I mean here is they really planned to occupy Kyiv in 72 hours. They really meant to occupy Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv faster, like in 48 hours. One kind of fun case, they even imported and hid it on our territory their parade uniforms. So they were prepared for winning parade in Kyiv ahead of invasion itself. So if they planned to crush Ukraine so easily, they basically didn't plan to use 45,000 bags for their soldiers. They didn't plan to use mobile crematoria for their soldiers. They basically planned to use it for us. After we saw all these atrocities on occupied territories, Chief of British Intelligence wrote on his Twitter that we knew Putin's invasion plans included summary execution of his military and intelligence service, executions by his military and intelligence service. The reports of execution-style killings of civilians emerging from liberated areas are horrifying and chilling. So basically, at least 2 intelligence services, American and British, had information about planned killings, and we with volunteers are working now on getting any additional information about that from American and British side. I have 5 more minutes, so I'll dive a little bit into historical pretext of this invasion. If we take even shallow look on last 100 years of history, we'll see that Russians do same things over and over again. In 1918, I'm sorry, when Russian army occupied Kiev, in last first 3 days of occupation, they killed more than 5,000 citizens of Kiev. And current researchers on the topic says that a lot of people was killed not for what they did, but for who they were. The distinctively visible a group like old guys from clerics, from officers of Russian Imperial Army, from government people from Russian Empire, and then second stratum is people who were aligned with Ukrainian People's Republic. Around those executions, the Russians also killed in Kiev a lot of civilians just because they could do it. And this situation is exactly similar to what we see on occupied territories now. Like here in Bucha, in Gostomel, in Avdiivka, or sorry, Andriivka, we see people executed, and then we see people killed, just murdered, raped. And we see here mechanics that leads from executions to basically murders. If Russian soldiers and Russian officers knew ahead of time that they will be killing civilians chosen by some criteria, but if you have lists, kill lists, you have, first of all, you need to have a criteria to compile this list. And if you have a criteria, you are going to this criteria on occupied territories because you cannot compile a complete list ahead of time. So if Russian officers and soldiers knew they will be executing civilians on occupied territories, so it means that they didn't plan to save lives. They knew they will be unpunished for almost every crime they will commit on our territory. This is exactly what we see in history, and this is exactly what we see right now. I already said about murder and destruction of Roman Shukevich's body, and I think it's pretty good example of what Russians planned to do with their mobile crematoria. It's basically everything I wanted to say about our research. I'll share a link to a project on GitHub a little bit later. And if somebody has some questions, I'm ready to answer. Thanks.
Thank you, Mykola. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for sharing this, because all this crematorium stuff, this is inhuman. This is unbelievable. And when I find out this information, when I heard about it, when I looked at it, and this was something beyond humanity. I have a lot of messages in chat that you are doing great. Thank you, Mykola, for being so strong and sharing this important truth with us. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. And also, guys, if you have any additional questions, you can ask them here in chat, or you can find Mykola in Pine and ask him directly if you want to know something in private. Mykola, I hope you are safe. I hope your family is safe. I believe our victory is coming soon. So thank you for joining us today, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Thank you for having me here. Good luck.